Why, hello. We are here at the Sober Atheist podcast once again. If you have found us in the media landscape, which is a little crowded, we're happy that you're here. We're happy that you found us, and we're now at episode 28, which is really it's going to be a very unusual episode. It's something that we haven't had to do before. And it's going to be more personal than anything we've done before. And the title is Banishing Fear and Anxiety as an Atheist in Recovery. Sometimes it's personal. And right now it couldn't get any more personal, could it, Michael?
Okay. No, this is it. This is the hard reality.
I had an observation that I shared with you the other day, and it's kind of a play on words, which is, it's kind of a common play on words. But it came up, and I said, there are most certainly atheists in foxholes. We're down in the foxhole, right?
Indeed,
We're down in the foxhole.
Yep.
And that the atheists, they are the people figuring out a way to get out of the hole.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the whole point of what we're talking about today. As an atheist in recovery, how do you get out of the hole? Well, then people are thinking, what the hell are they talking about? It could be viewed as a generic topic because, fear and anxiety is often talked about in all kinds of recovery meetings, in all kinds of places that I'm certainly not going to mention.
Yeah, it's part of the human condition,
Yeah, and people are constantly talking about fear and anxiety, but it comes up as sort of a trope in recovery circles, and people have pat answers and pat feelings about that, and they go to these meetings and they hear the same stuff about it over and over again. Well, we don't go to those meetings anymore. We don't hear that stuff. And we have to deal with fear and anxiety as best we can. And in this episode, we're going to talk about some recent events in our own lives that strip that so-called program veneer away and made fear and anxiety ring out for us very personally. And the fact is that in the past several months, in my case since September, and in Michael's case a little bit before that, I believe.
July.
Yeah, July. Yeah, it was like, you found out about this stuff a while back. But both of us have faced potentially fatal or potentially disabling problems that put the words fear and anxiety front and center in our lives.
Yeah.
And we're going to tell you what happened to us. And then we're going to go on from there and talk about how we're coping with it, not have coped. We are coping with it as sober atheists in recovery. And Michael is going to talk about his situation right now.
Okay. Yeah, so I mentioned July. The end of July, I was diagnosed with throat cancer, a squamous cell tumor in my throat at the base of my tongue. And it was quite a paradigm shift for me, of course. So I've just finished 7 weeks of radiation therapy, and I'm now in the midst of still ongoing radiation treatment because it's cumulative and it continues working for 3 or 4 weeks, and I'm right in the middle of that. So yeah, this paradigm shift for me brought fear and anxiety to the forefront. Of course, I mean, faced with potential mortality, or at least seeing it on the horizon, I've had to assess my presence and my goals and my my legacy, everything. You tend to look at everything that's going on and how and why I've gotten to this point, and what do I do from this point. I think the most shocking statement that I heard from my doctor, which really brought it hard and fast into reality for me, was when the doctor said if I did nothing, I would be dead within the year. And having faced death in the past while I was using, it brought back all of the reasons why I'm continuing to be sober today, and why I got sober to begin with. When I was drinking and drugging, I thought that every bottle of booze and every bag of dope that I use was my attempt to be as close to death as possible. And when I realized that, when I faced that truth about myself, that was the turning point for me in seeking sobriety. I realized that I was just literally killing myself. So all of that's been brought back. And so I look at how I was able to overcome that initial mortality flirtation, and how I got sober and why, and what did I use and what did I not use to regain my desire to stay alive. So now that I'm in the midst of another battle with this cancer business, it brings back those reasons why I want to stay alive and what I can do about it. It also reminds me starkly, because of the way people have responded to me and responded to knowing that I have cancer, how being an atheist is, it's not really in the formula that most people present. I've met so many people, and I was surprised. I'm not really surprised, but I am surprised that so many people, their first response is, "Oh, I'll pray for you," and "I'm praying for you," and so it's made me think twice about what that means and whether it makes any sense to me at all. I don't pray. I don't believe in God. And when people come up to me and say, I'm praying to God that you will recover quickly and easily, it's made me look at that and why are they praying and what are they getting out of it? It seems to be, for me, I think even back when I was going to meetings every day, face-to-face meetings in AA and NA, the idea of prayer never really made a lot of sense to me. It seemed to be, in some respects, an avoidance behavior. Like, I'm not responsible for my alcoholism. I'm not responsible. It's God's will, not mine, that I'm sober, and all those things. So I've come to the conclusion that I think it's easier not having that belief and not having that need to avoid my strength and my will and my desire to stay alive. I mean, it comes down to me. I want to stay alive. So I'm depending on science, radiation therapy. I'm depending on that. I'm not depending on a higher power of any kind to get me through this. I'm gathering my own internal strength and desire to stay alive, and depend on the science, and not depend on a higher power of any kind. I think that's kind of the bottom line is where I am with the idea that I suddenly have cancer. And now that it's part of my vocabulary and I have to accept that. But I did want to quickly say that I don't think that I am banishing fear and anxiety. I think I'm accepting it and embracing it and responding to my fear and anxiety about a potentially fatal disease. I'm embracing that and holding on to my strength to overcome that fear and anxiety. And I do a lot of positive things that keeps me from wallowing in that fear and anxiety. But I don't think I'm banishing it. I think it's there. It's part of the human condition. we have fear, we have anxiety, but I'm trying to stay as positively focused as possible. And I find that I have my own internal strength, just like I did with sobriety. I think it was me that got myself sober, just like it's me and science that's keeping me alive and making me a survivor from this disease. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
Yeah, it makes a great deal of sense. And when I came up with the word banishing, I really meant coping, because for me, when I'm coping with it,
it goes back.
I'm
behind us.
I'm not going to walk around in a constant state of being afraid of anything. I'm just not going to do that. But I got myself. It's sort of ironic. We're both sort of the wounded warriors of the podcast universe now. But we're going to get through this, and not every topic here from here on out is going to be regarding this. We're going to move on to other things, given the time and ability we have to do it. But right now, and talking about my own situation, very different from Michael's, but still very critical. Back in September, I still work. I'm an old man, but I'm nearing my 77th birthday, but I still work because I like nice stuff. I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm not a big fan of capitalism, but I'm one of those lefties that likes nice stuff. And my wife has a very good job with the government, which she's fortunately back at work as of this week. And but I'm not a person that took good care of cash when I was making a very considerable income for a lot of years. It just divorces and this and that. It just So we live very nicely, and we've got a very good place to live, and we're very happy about that. And we can do our basic life together. But if we want to do, or I want, special stuff, I've got to go out and earn some money. So I still have I spent a lot of my life traveling overseas and doing work overseas. And I have a very good client in a country I'm not going to mention that I've had for about a decade. And we work a couple of times a year. We work very intensely on some things that I can do for them here in Washington that they can't do themselves remotely. It would be very difficult for them to do that. I do that. And, from time to time, it used to be, well, sometimes it's twice a year, sometimes it's once a year. I have to go to this place for at least generally it's 2 weeks. And I'm very comfortable going there now. The hotel I stay in, very nice place. All the people there know me. I've been going there off and on for a lot of years now. I'm very well cared for. They're all surprised that I'm still alive and coming back. I can tell. It's very funny. The ladies in the breakfast room always run up and give me a big hug because they think, oh God, he's still here. So it's funny. That's sort of funny. So I've got a very comfortable environment when I go there, and I'm very used to doing this. But I was there mid-September. I was there the first day. Everything was okay. I generally fly in on a Saturday. It's a very long flight, very grueling for me flight, and I get in there on a Saturday, and I take Sunday to plan the work for the next 2 weeks and send some emails out to people telling them what they're going to be doing for the next couple of weeks, because that's what they pay me to do, is deal with their employees and tell them what to do for a couple of weeks. And I do that, and generally things go very smoothly. I've done this many times. I know what I'm doing, and I'm very comfortable traveling in different places around the world, and it's really pretty easy for me to do this. Well, it's not easy; it's very hard work, but I'm not at a disadvantage in doing anything there. I know exactly what I'm doing, and and it's very critical that I complete the task when I'm there. I won't go into any details about that, but it's extremely important to these people who are friends of mine now that this task get completed while I'm there. And I do that. I've done a very thorough job for them there over a lot of years. And on the Monday, I went into the office and got started on the project as usual, and everything was okay. But by Tuesday, I was feeling such intense back pain that I had to have the hotel guides bring a wheelchair to get me out to my car. I couldn't go down to breakfast. It took me 3 hours to get. I had to get up at 4 o'clock to get in the car by 6:45 just to get ready. It took forever, and I was in very bad shape when I got in there that day. And one of the people I deal with is a very good friend of mine now. He's an engineer, and I said to him, "You got to take me somewhere where I can get something to take care of this pain that I've got. All right, just if we're going to continue, I've got to get something for it now," I said. And he took me to this very expensive hospital they have in this place. And I knew I was in for a shakedown when I went in there, and I got to this desk, and there's like 6 of these incredibly beautiful girls all speaking perfect English sitting behind the desk. I said, "Oh man, this is going to be." I know these kind of play overseas. You get the American price. I said, "The American price is on the way," and they came back to me, and I explained why I was there, and they said, "Oh, our top neurosurgeon's in surgery. He'll be down." And I said, "No, no, 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 no. You just find me a guy somewhere in this building that'll write me a prescription. That's the only reason I'm here. I'm not here to see your neurosurgeon or whatever." And a couple $100 later, I was being ushered into this doctor's office who I told him, I said, "I need something, but it can't be a heavy narcotic. It's got to be a mid-level narcotic. And I know about pain overseas, and what if you get an ache or pain, there's this drug, tramadol, which won't disable you mentally, but which will take the edge off if you take enough of it, whatever's wrong with you."
Yeah, so you could still
But
work.
yeah, so I could still work and function and do
Right.
my thing. I mean, it's just heavy opioids, and you're out of the game. I mean, this tramadol it's an opioid, but it's a mid-level opioid but it wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough. And instead of closing the books like I should have and getting on the plane and coming back to DC, coming back to Dulles immediately, I had a 2-week job ahead of me, and I did that job for 2 weeks.
In
Okay.
pain.
Oh, and I had to get the version of Advil. It's different, but it's the same version of Advil and version of Tylenol. In addition to this other stuff, I was gobbling. I don't know how much gobbling OTCs all day long. In addition to this, and I don't know how I did it, because when I got up to go to the bathroom, they either had to help me or I had to put my hands up against the wall just to be able to, because I didn't like these young people taking me to the bathroom. So I just had to put my hands up against the wall and sort of inch across the hallway. It was that bad. And going in and out of the hotel, it was the wheelchair guys, and paying those guys every day. They loved it because I was paying them a nice sum to take care of me and wheel me back and forth. Right? They're all running around to try to get there first to get me to take them, take care of them. And I was crazy to do this. I was just absolutely out of my mind to do it, but I did. And I finished the job, and everything was fine in its usual way. But by the time I was done in this place, I knew I couldn't get on the airplane unless I took drastic action. And I bribed the people at the airport with some large sum to get me on the airplane. And they had this airport guy in the suits, and the medic came and he said, "Oh, it's a regulation. You have to strap yourself in our wheelchair," all this other crap, right? And then I had the baggage guy and, waved through everything and, waved through went through the passport check. I don't even remember I was so fucked up that I got to the airplane and it was a nightmare. I had paid these people a ton of money to get me in my seat, and then they have this security force they hired from another country that, since it's going direct to DC, there's all this incredible shakedown of people, and they dealt with that part. Those guys didn't shake me down, but then they said, "They won't let us move any further. You're on your own." Okay. And I somehow had to crawl from one end of this counter to another and get the attention of somebody to get me on the airplane. And that's what they did. And getting off at Dulles was even worse. I won't go into all of that because Dulles is Dulles. And, I was waving $20 bills, and I waved enough $20 bills, and some people came. They got me out and got me to my wife, and we went nonstop we had to Uber. We had to stop at our place to get rid of the bags. The bags had to go. And then we took just nonstop to my local hospital, where they immediately took one look at me and in the back in about 5 minutes, rather than the usual 3 hours it takes. 5 minutes, I'm in the back, and they start shooting me up with Dilaudid. Okay, I was in such terrible pain. They're shooting me up with Dilaudid. The pain was so bad that when they called the surgeon immediately, fortunately they had one of the top 3 neurosurgeons in Washington is affiliated with Kaiser, my insurance plan. He has some kind of contract with them, and he was in there like quick, like the next day he's in there, and they're trying to get me in the MRI, Michael, and they shooting me up with more and more of this shit to get me in the MRI. The pain was so bad to get me on the table. I finally screamed enough so that I had to convince them that the only way I could get in the MRI was through general anesthesia.
Wow.
And they told me that's impossible because of the metal in the room. I said, there's got to be somebody that knows how to do this. And they said, well, we did it once about 5 years ago. We have to figure it out.
Wow.
So the 2 anesthesiologists figured out a way to do it. And they got me down. It was funny, though. They got me down there, and they had this big tube. I saw this big tube filled with white liquid, and they were trying to move me from one place to another. I said, there's no way you're moving, because they rolled me in my hospital bed down into the MRI, right? It was that bad. It's that bad, okay?
Wow, yeah.
And the hospital, and they were going to move me from one gurney to another. And I said, no way. You're going to knock me out completely before you touch me, all right? I wasn't letting them touch. And I saw this big, and it was propofol.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, good stuff.
And I said, oh, shit, I was laughing. I said, oh, man, that's the thing that took out Michael Jackson, right? That's the same shit. Because it looks like milk. He called it milk, and it was like this white liquid. And they said, it sure does. And the next thing I know, I'm in the recovery room after Dreamland. And, the reason I'm saying this is because this was a type of pain that's very unusual. It was very unusual. And I got incredibly lucky because this guy that opened my back up the next day is an effing genius. This guy is incredible. There was a real problem with the spinal column. He opened it up, and I got up. When I got up out of the recovery room, my right leg was completely okay, and I had left leg pain that was manageable, and it was incredible. So I got incredibly lucky. If I had been in this overseas place, or if I had been in the wrong town in the United States, if I hadn't have found exactly the right guy who's a genius neurosurgeon who knows how to do this guy looked at my wife and I, and he said, I'm taking care of this. Okay. And just the way he carried himself and just the way he was, we knew he was telling us the truth. He says, nobody like you gets off my table disabled, he said.
All right.
Nobody gets off my table disabled. And I said, Doc, here's, and he gave us 3 alternatives of the type of surgery he was going to do. And we picked one, and he said, oh, you picked the right one. So I got very lucky. But you know what happened to me in the hospital, Michael? They got me on 60 milligrams of Dilaudid every 6 hours.
So you were looking face to face at the possibility of being disabled.
I was looking face to face at a fucking wheelchair is what I was looking at.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is one of my greatest fears. I don't fear death, but I fear disability.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
I was looking disability straight in the face. All
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Plus, opioid addiction, and there was a lot of stuff going on that required a lot of stuff after I got out of there, which was the second week in October when I finally, 2 weeks in this hospital, I finally got out of there. There's a lot of other shit because I had to withdraw from all these fucking opioids. I mean, if our friends that are opioid addicts, at the point in time I came home, if you knew where I lived, you would have broken down my front door. Okay, right? It would have, it was like a junkie heaven when I got here. All right, with the amount of shit I had here, and I'm happy to report, okay, that I will be completely opioid free next Saturday.
All right.
And that's another part of the story here too. It's not an addiction. I've never been addicted to narcotics, but I certainly was in that hospital.
Sure.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
For medical reasons.
Yeah.
And dealing with this as a sober person has been a son of a bitch, not to mention all the specialists I have to go to. I have to go to another one on Wednesday to fight with somebody about something I have to do. And, I may end up back at Johns Hopkins up in Baltimore with the geniuses up there if they don't. Let's just put it this way. It's been a motherfucker. All right?
Yeah. There you go.
All the way down the road. And how do we deal with this, Michael? I mean, it's like we get to the point where we have to realize that our rational coping mechanisms as atheists, particularly as people who are prone to addiction, right? It's only our rational coping mechanisms that we have to rely on, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I think both of us have used our long experience in being sober. I mean, if I survive, January the 3rd, I'll have 39 years. You've just passed the 20-year mark.
Oh, just about to. Yeah. Another month, just I'll be 20 years. Yeah.
20-year mark. And we got a lot of experience in staying sober.
Yeah.
But we do it without any of this pie in the sky, all these people. I love all the people praying for you. I think any good wishes are good wishes.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's a positive thing. I mean, it's not
it's
negative
not
at all.
bad.
So
It's not bad, but they actually believe that shit. Okay,
yeah,
that's that's a little bit of a problem for us because there ain't no such thing. All right, no such thing. No pie in the sky. No benevolent presence on our shoulder. Right, but we got a life to live, and we're gonna live it. Right,
yeah,
both
yeah,
of us. We got lives to live. We got a lot
yeah.
of stuff going on.
Yeah, bottom
We've
line, we're
got
choosing life over death.
We're
I
choosing
mean,
life. We have
yeah,
like wonderful relationships and
yeah,
wonderful places to go
yeah,
and people that care about us that want us to stay around.
yeah,
So we're going to do whatever we can do to keep that kind of stuff going on.
yeah.
All right? I found myself in my endocrinologist's office getting these shots. The stuff they had me on for osteoporosis doesn't work. And she says, well, we're going to have to intervene in a different way. And when an endocrinologist tells you that, that's a person that looks at your bones, okay? Your endocrinologist, amongst the other things they do, they're the bone people. They're not bone, they don't fix broken bones, but they predict and treat the tendency to have more broken bones.
Mm.
So this broken bone I had in my spine, well, I'll put it this way. My wife and I are in there with her and talking to her, and she looks at us and she says, well, we've got to make sure you don't have a fall, John, because if you fall, we're all going to have trouble. We're all in trouble, she said.
Yeah,
All of us. So, the saga continues, right, Michael? Your saga continues. My saga continues.
yeah, yeah.
And how the hell are we going to deal with it?
Mhm.
How are we going to deal with it?
Yeah.
How are you dealing with it?
I think it's a matter of just positive outlook as well as positive action. Right thought and right action is what it comes down to for me. I try to dwell on the things that are positive in my life. The gratitude that I have for a warm home and a charming travel companion. And I take action. I do the same things that I've done all the time I've been sober. The things that keep me in a positive path, on a positive path. Like gardening and making art and doing positive things. Trying to make my life, trying to at least ignore sometimes the stuff that is a burden at the moment. The idea that I have cancer isn't going to go away, and now it's a part of my life for the rest of my life. I mean, it's the potential for it to come back, and not even knowing if the radiation therapy has worked. And I can't dwell on the negative possibilities. I have to focus on the positive things in my life right now, and keep that the focus. And the people, being connected to other people that have been through this before. All the meetings that I go to are secular sobriety meetings online that I go to. There's a lot of people that I can identify with their struggles as well. And those of us staying together, staying connected, has a lot to do with my sobriety and my positive outlook on the fact that I have cancer. I try to stay on that positive path, and I know you do too. You do too.
Yeah, we do our best, and we do our best despite some real challenges. And
Yeah.
I just want to editorialize. I don't want to editorialize on you, but the way you and your wife have coped with this and handled this has really helped me. Okay, particularly when I found myself lying there, hallucinating in the hospital from having too much fucking dope pumped into my system.
Yeah.
That was no fun. But I really admire the way you're going through this, because when I found out you had cancer, I immediately, of course, they don't tell you this, but what they do is they go on the internet and they look it up,
Oh yeah.
and they look the treatment up, and they look at all that stuff, and they come back and they look at what you're going through, and I said, holy shit, okay, is what I said. Okay.
Yeah, that's
All
pretty
right.
much what I said too.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, because it's a real mother. Okay,
That's very
going through
real.
that.
Very real.
It's quite real. It's quite real. And just to see the way that you're doing this, without fantasy, without fallacy, without some kind of foolishness. All right, is it's actually inspiring to me, and I'm sure to the people that know you out there in Indiana, which there are many.
Oh yeah.
You've been around and you're quite active in your community, and you know a lot of folks out there. I'm sure they see the same thing, and but that's just part of it, okay? Because what we're doing here on the podcast, and what we're doing as atheists in recovery, is trying to communicate the message to people that you can have a sober and productive life no matter what without engaging in any sort of fantasy or fiction about the outcome or the, conditions that your life may have. Because I don't have anybody, unless I'm in that hospital all filled with dope, I don't have any strange voices in my head. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Today, coming up, finally getting off all this shit. By the way, I had another good experience, and I suggest this to anybody that finds themselves in a medical situation where opioids may be an issue. I did a diligent search, and I found the one person at Kaiser that really understands drugs better than anybody else. And she happens to be a PhD pharmacist, not a doctor, but a PhD pharmacist who advises them on people who are addicted. And she said it was great. It was a great experience, because when I started talking to her, she said, wow, this is really great. You're one of the very few people I talk to that actually wants to get off this stuff. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And that indicated to me that maybe I was on the right path. Right,
There you
Michael?
go. Yeah,
I don't want to, I don't want to have a bottle of deadly narcotics, hanging around, that I use, right?
Yeah.
I don't want that, right? I'm not, I don't want to go the way. I was watching an Eddie Murphy bio. It's on Netflix. Actually, it's very good. I suggest it that anybody look at it. It's great. But, he was talking about some of his friends and some of the people he knew and some of the people he admired.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, I don't want to go the way of Prince, okay?
Yeah.
I don't want to go like, Michael Jackson, right? Who he knew well, right? And, he had a whole list of others, endless list of other people he knew. And he says, I don't want to go out that way, okay? I don't want to do that. And I don't, right? He's just not naturally addictive person. I thought that was interesting that he's never used any heavy addictive substances, at least according to him. Given that incredible worldwide fame and unlimited money that he's had since he was a very young guy, that's sort of a testament. And we're a little different, right, Michael? We didn't, we sort of dipped our hands in the cookie jar for a while, right? Didn't we?
I was offered a lot more drugs and painkillers from my oncologist, and I've done my best to avoid them because this whole experience reminds me of addiction. To be powerless and to be controlled by something other than myself. The cancer is it's like an addictive drug. It's in my system, and now I'm trying to detox away from it, trying to get it out.
Right.
And I had the opportunity. I could have turned to drugs. I could have turned to even alcohol. I mean, the thought of obliterating myself, just disappearing and crawling into a bottle, which is what I always did in the past. Whenever I was confronted with any kind of difficulty or a challenge, I always climbed into the bottle or found my dealer somewhere. This time, I was reminded of that tendency in my head that I don't want to do that again. I really don't want to experience addiction again. So I'm
Yeah.
doing my
Well,
best to stay away from that.
nobody does. Nobody does. When I was talking to that addiction expert, the lady who's advice, and she's given us a schedule. Like we've got week by week by week, we're getting
Right.
off this stuff, and next Saturday's the last thing, and then it's finished. And I had issues, but we talked about that. But she indicated to me very strongly that the desire to stop is extremely important, which totally resonated with me because there was somebody who's a professional dealing with people. She said, you had a lot of stuff in you, but I deal with people that take a lot more than that. Okay. She was talking about other folks. She didn't specifically reference anybody, of course, but we go down this road, right? And it's our intention and our practice to stay sober.
Right.
And I looked up at one of the hospital people, and I said, talking about this drug thing, and I said, "Well, I'm just glad you don't have Jack Daniels in that drip, okay?
Yeah.
Because then I would. That was my thing. I would have been in real serious trouble if it was Jack. All right, but it wasn't, and we dealt with it. But it's not easy. But I think that we realize the flesh is weak, right? We don't have ultimate control over this physical body. We can do the best we can to take care of it, but biology, heredity, past behavior, all that stuff comes together. I've got some things inherited from my stuff comes together, and the flesh is in fact weak, isn't it? Okay.
Well, we have both outlived the warranty. So from now
right.
on, we're pushing the limits.
Right. But our commitment, I think, and when I was thinking about this and writing a couple of notes about this whole process you and I are going through, in different ways, okay, is that our sense of resilience and comprehension of our environment can be amazingly strong because we don't bring any fantasy to it. Being an atheist in that sense has been a real relief because I'm not looking for any last minute pardons. Are you?
Yeah. I feel fine with that not being a part of my life or my consciousness at all. I think that would be a burden for me if I was beholden to something else outside of me.
Yeah, I mean, unlike the founder of one of those programs, there are no bright white lights. Okay,
right.
All right. By the way, he was on dope when he saw the bright white lights. That's another.
Was it belladonna or something like that?
Yeah, it was. They I don't know what it had a mixture of shit they gave him there in 1935, but that's an old story, long ago. And but there are no bright white lights or otherworldly compassion or otherworldly expressions of love to get us through this. And there's no absurd thoughts of an afterlife to ease our pain. It's all going to be better once we pass over to the other side. it's not an old blues song. Okay, we don't, those some of those songs are great and they're entertaining and they're real in a cultural sense, and they've done a lot of good for people that believe it. We don't say that stuff doesn't do good for people who believe it, because I think there's enough evidence to sort of prove that maybe does ease them off or whatever it does. But you know, we don't. And it's absolutely impossible for us to go there, okay? Because we absolutely know that it's untrue. So,
Yeah, it's comforting for some people, and I understand that. But I like the idea that's not even part of my vocabulary. That the idea of
right.
heaven or hell. I think that's kind of a burden that I don't want.
Yeah, you, I don't see you on a daily basis, but I've seen you while you've been going through this, and I think our ability to cope evolved as because we are atheists and because we've spent so much time around people recovering from serious serious fatal. I mean, this addiction shit's often fatal, right? We know a lot of
Oh yeah,
people
oh yeah,
that didn't make it, of course.
yeah.
And uh, that I think this has been evolving so that our own natural emotional responses. All right, you mentioned about the fact that you cope with fear even though fear doesn't disappear, and all of that kind of stuff, which I do agree with. But our emotional responses don't disappear, but our ability to cope evolves in a way that gets us through our most difficult days.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had some difficult days,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
When I was first in the hospital, we were so convinced I was going to need a wheelchair. I bought one. I got when I was, sort of. I was on. I could do Amazon even when I'm stoned. I guess I was on the. Excuse me. I was in the hospital and I bought this wheelchair and it arrived, and I got rid of it. I gave it away the other day. Okay, because I don't need it. I don't want it, and I'm not getting in it. Having it here in our place was too much. I got rid of it. That was my emotional response to
Yeah,
this whole
yeah,
thing.
that's good.
Yeah, I got rid of it. We ended up giving it to somebody that really needed. We had some people here in the building that help with that kind of thing. Our management's very good. We're good friends with the management of this building, and they found somebody quickly that needed it. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so it wasn't wasted money. It was money that ended up helping someone else. But that's the. It's not a denial of the inevitable result or end, because we all both are very aware of the inevitability of where we're at right now,
Sure.
right?
Oh yeah,
We know
yeah,
that. We know
yeah.
all about that. But it's a resistance and a sense of uh, becoming more and more rational about this that is in fact extremely effective in dealing with what we have to deal with on a daily basis in an emotionally and intellectually sound way. All right,
Positive. Yes, a positive way.
positive
Yeah.
sound, getting us to the point where we're coping with these uh, effects of a lot of this stuff we can't control. Okay, I was on that table out in the hands of this neurosurgeon, and if he didn't do what he did as well as he does, I was not walking out of there.
Mm.
I was going to get out of there, but I was going to be in a condition which I know I will not accept. A lot of people will accept those conditions. I won't. All right. That would have been the end for me. Right. So we go in there with the idea, you go into that room with that radiation guy, and he better be pointing that thing in the right direction, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah, your radiation oncologist,
Oh,
he better have calibrated that fucking thing correctly, right?
yeah, yeah. And when you're laying on that slab, I mean, they had a mask that form fitted my face, and it was bolted to the table so that I couldn't move a millimeter. Being that helpless and being that trusting. I mean, I just had to trust that science, trust that those guys were going to do it right. Yeah, it was humbling, but it also made me feel comfortable. I was okay with that, knowing that they're
Right.
doing the best they can, and you
Right.
know, I didn't have to ask for help from anyone else. It was the trust that I had in their scientific ability to point that radiation exactly where it was going to go.
Right. And it brings me and brought me, when I was thinking about this, around to the word that is used in that other context. And the word that I came up with was gratitude.
Oh, very
All
much
right.
so. Yeah.
I'm very grateful that, and I'm sure you feel the same way,
Oh yeah.
that we can confront our feelings and our difficulties as rational beings, not as parrots spouting platitudes, as the seriousness of our conditions become clear.
Mm-hmm.
The clearer our condition comes to us, the more rational we become, because we know that's the only way to be.
Yeah.
There is no miracle coming out of the sky to fix us, Michael. And that, I feel very grateful for having a commitment to that idea. It was the same thing with my recovery from the alcoholism that I had such a terrible and disabling case of
Yeah.
all those years ago,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Was to look at that condition as rationally as I possibly could, knowing that if I was not successful, I was going to take myself out, right?
Right. Right.
It's
Yeah. We
like,
we both had that choice. We chose life. You know, when you're in that position where you can choose death if you want to. You know, and we didn't. We chose life. It was exactly the same thing as sobriety. You know, when I got to that point where I realized that it was a choice between life and death, I chose life. And that's why I'm still sober today, 20 years after having that terrible addiction. I mean, it's addiction is like death, very similar to death.
it's like there's a lot of iconography, particularly in there's a lot of iconography from the Middle Ages about human suffering, right?
Mm,
And the way it's depicted in the Middle Ages is that human suffering all is part of the divine plan, and that
mm,
your belief in something that is higher than you is going to take you out of the slough of despond that is the suffering mass of people on earth,
yeah,
which was certainly true in the Middle Ages, right?
yeah,
But we got something now, right, that is a little bit more efficacious. It's science,
science. Yeah,
technology,
yeah,
medical skill, having some conviction, like that guy that said to me, nobody gets off my table, right, unless they're fixed, right? That was it.
mm-hmm.
All right. And I don't know whether I believe that 100%, okay? But I believed it enough to let them put me on that table,
Yeah,
and he proved himself to be correct, because
mm-hmm.
when he told me what he did, there's just a small opening in the back. They don't make big openings in the back for that, but it's small opening. And he said, "Well, I had to go all the way through the spine, And there was all this junk in there that I had to get rid of. It took me twice as long to get to the place where we needed to get to
Wow.
because of your osteoporosis and, incipient, uh, arthritis and all these. Oh, I was picking stuff. He was so funny. He said, "Yeah, I'm picking all this junk out. It took me twice as long to get down there." And, I'm glad I had somebody that could pick that junk out and get down there, right?
Yeah.
Who knew enough? That's science. That's medical skill. That's being in the right hospital with those people in that. I'll tell you, in the Johns Hopkins run hospital I go to here in Bethesda, those people are 100% all business up there. They are experts at what they do in taking care of you. Okay? And that's what we put, and that's the same way you do with the medical people that you deal with.
Yeah.
We do the best we can to find the best place that we can be, and we have some faith in that, right?
Yeah.
In the country I was in, I had zero faith in that place. I was going to do anything to get to, there was no way they were getting me up, in there. But when I got home, as miserable as I was, they fixed me.
Yeah.
All right. And that's not God. That's not angels. That's not intervention of anywhere, but people who live here on earth.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very grateful for that. Right?
Yeah.
I think you are too.
Very much so. Absolutely.
As you continue your journey.
Yeah.
I think we're very lucky to be able to confront the events in front of us with a clear eye and the resolution and the resolute resolve that comes from dealing with facts.
Mm-hmm.
The facts are this. You have a choice as how you deal with the facts. The outcome may very well depend on how you deal with the facts that are presented to you. But if you've got your head on and you're able to make proper decisions about those facts, the chances of a positive outcome go up. It's the same thing with sobriety. We present our fellow addicts and alcoholics with the facts, and they have the ability to make choices that impact the result.
Yes.
And experience shows us that certain activities, like a commitment to abstinence, for example. I don't think we use the word abstinence so far in this podcast.
No.
I think we sort of had to use it
sobriety,
at the end here, sobriety, right?
Yeah.
It's abstinence, and I think we're giving it a good shot, and we're going to continue to do this podcast as long as we can.
Yeah.
And when we can't, right? But we're going to continue doing what we're doing here, because we think we're probably doing some good stuff, right, Mike?
Yeah. And we will continue to deal with our fear and anxiety from a rational perspective, and depending on all the positive facts out there that can help us deal with our fear and anxiety and get through this, and continue.
Right. And continue to get through it, in the spirit of what, Michael? How do we phrase this stuff? How it
I like to feel that we are buttressing ourselves with hope. There you go.
That's the word I was waiting to hear.
Yeah, okay. There you go. Yeah.
And trying to deal with our fellow addicts and alcoholics who happen to be atheists, and other people in general, in the spirit of peace and love, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is the way we're going to end this thing, because we've come to the end of our allotted time, and we have to wish everyone peace, love, and happiness in their pursuit of solutions to their problems, right?
And
peace and love.
That will provide hope for everyone.
That will provide hope for anyone. Well, we'll say goodbye for now.
Yeah.
And, we're hoping to be back soon, right, Michael?
Oh, yeah. We'll keep going.
And
Yeah.
we'll do our best. Okay. Take care, everybody. We love you.
Peace and love.
Peace and love. We love you. Bye-bye.